All right, strap in, everyone. Today we're going deep, really deep, into the world of viruses and evolution.
Should be fun.
It's one thing to talk about viruses making us sick, but what if they're actually the secret force behind, well, all of life as we know it?
That's what we're diving into today. The source material is a lecture that really throws down the gauntlet, suggesting that viruses might be the real drivers of evolution. Forget Darwin and his finches. We're talking about microscopic hijackers rewriting the code of life itself.
Okay, I'm intrigued. But before we get to all that, let's start with the basics. I mean, what even is a virus? Are they even alive?
That's the first hurdle, right? It's a tricky question. On the one hand, they can spread, they mutate, they evolve, but they're so incredibly simple.
Simpler than bacteria.
Oh, way simpler.
Yeah.
Think of them as just little snippets of genetic material, either DNA or RNA, tucked inside a protein coat. They can't reproduce on their own. To make copies of themselves, they need to invade a host cell and basically hijack its machinery.
So like little pirates taking over a ship.
Perfect analogy. And some of these pirates, particularly the ones made of RNA, are real shapeshifters. They mutate rapidly, which is why we see new strains of flu and, of course, COVID-19 popping up all the time.
It's like they're playing hide and seek with our immune systems.
Mhm.
But here's something I've always wondered. If viruses are all about spreading and replicating, wouldn't it be a terrible strategy to kill off their host? I mean, that's a dead end, literally.
It is, and that's a key point. In most cases, a virus that's too deadly will wipe itself out before it can spread effectively.
So it's in their best interest to keep us alive, at least long enough to infect someone else.
You got it. It's a delicate balance. And what's fascinating is that there's a whole spectrum of viral behavior. Some viruses have evolved to coexist peacefully with their hosts, causing minimal harm. Some even offer benefits.
Wait, beneficial viruses? I thought they were all bad news.
Not necessarily. For instance, some viruses actually attack cancer cells. There's some exciting research going on right now exploring how to harness these viruses for cancer therapy. Yeah.
Whoa, talk about a plot twist. Okay, so we've got these tiny shape-shifting entities that can be both harmful and helpful. How does all this tie into the whole evolution thing?
Well, the traditional view, the Darwinian model, is all about gradual change through random mutations and natural selection. The idea is that individuals with beneficial mutations are more likely to survive and pass those traits on to their offspring.
Survival of the fittest, right. But if it's all about beneficial mutations, why do we see so many genetic disorders? Shouldn't evolution be weeding those out?
It's one of the big questions. And then you have to consider that most mutations are actually neutral. They don't really affect an organism's fitness one way or the other. Plus, there are those massive evolutionary leaps, the ones that can't easily be explained by tiny incremental changes.
Yeah, those are the head scratchers. Like, how on earth did the giraffe get its incredibly long neck?
Exactly. That's the classic example. And that's where the viral evolution theory comes in. It suggests that viruses, with their ability to insert their genetic material into a host's DNA, could be the missing piece of the puzzle.
Wait, so you're saying a virus could have infected a giraffe's ancestor, and instead of making it sick, it gave it a long neck?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
And not just a long neck, but also all the other adaptations it needed to survive with that long neck. Stronger heart to pump blood all the way up there, a way to regulate blood pressure so it wouldn't faint every time it bent over. There's a system-wide change, not just one isolated trait.
Okay, it's pretty wild. So instead of slow and steady changes over millions of years, you're talking about a more sudden leap, a viral upgrade.
That's the idea. And that could also explain why we see gaps in the fossil record. It's not that the in-between stages didn't exist, it's that the changes happened so rapidly they didn't leave a lasting impression in the fossil record.
That makes sense. So are you saying viruses are like evolutionary accelerators, fast-forwarding the whole process?
Could be. And this theory started getting some real traction after a big study published in Nature back in 2000.
Intriguing. What do they find?
Strong evidence that the mammalian placenta, the organ that allows mammals to give birth to live young, probably evolved because of a viral infection.
Hold on, you're saying a virus might be responsible for the placenta? That's huge. I mean, that's one of the key things that separates mammals from, reptiles and birds.
It is a big deal, and if a virus can play a role in something as fundamental as that, who knows what other evolutionary secrets they might be hiding.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So we've gone from viruses being these tiny disease-causing agents to potential masterminds of evolution. Where do we go from here?
Well, hold on to your hats, because the lecture takes us on a pretty wild ride from here. we're going to explore some even more mind-boggling ideas about viral evolution and its impact on, well, everything.
I'm ready. Hit me with it.
Welcome back, everyone. Before we journey too far into the deep end, let's circle back to the giraffe for a moment. Specifically, those problems we were having with the Darwinian explanation for its long neck.
Ah, yes, those little wrinkles in the classic evolutionary tale. Let's iron those out.
Well, the first one that jumps out. If a long neck is such a great advantage, why didn't other savanna herbivores evolve the same way? It's not like there's a shortage of tall trees in Africa.
Yeah, you'd think the savanna would be full of long-necked critters, all reaching for the highest leaves.
Right. The other big issue, remember how Darwinian evolution relies on those gradual changes over millions of years? But when you look at the fossil record, the transition from the giraffe's shorter-necked ancestor, Cyphetherium, to the giraffe, it seems pretty abrupt. Where are all the in-between necks?
It's almost like evolution hit the fast-forward button.
Exactly. And then, even if you could explain the speed, there's the sheer complexity of the change. We're not just talking about adding a few extra vertebrae here.
Right, you can't just slap on a longer neck and call it a day.
It needs a whole suite of adaptations.
Huh.
A more powerful heart to pump blood all the way up to the head, a special circulatory system to regulate blood pressure. Even the brain needs some rewiring so the giraffe doesn't pass out every time it takes a drink.
It's like trying to upgrade your computer by just sticking on a bigger monitor. You'd need a whole new motherboard, a better power supply, the works.
That's a great analogy. And the chances of all those necessary mutations happening at the same time, randomly, well, let's just say you'd have better luck winning the lottery.
So Darwinian evolution might explain the small tweaks here and there, but for those big evolutionary leaps, we need something more.
Something more. And that's where our viral friends come back into the picture.
Okay, remind me how a virus could actually pull off this kind of evolutionary magic trick.
Well, remember that viruses are basically little packages of genetic information. They can sneak their way into a host's DNA, sometimes adding new genes, sometimes messing with the ones that are already there.
So a virus could infect a Cyphetherium, and instead of just giving it a cold, it could rewrite its genetic code, giving it the blueprint for a longer neck.
That's the idea. And since viruses can spread through a population like wildfire, you could have an entire species transformed in just a few generations. No need to wait millions of years.
It's like evolution got a turbo boost. But if viruses are so good at this, why aren't we seeing brand new species popping up all the time?
Good question. And the answer probably lies in how rare it is for a virus to strike that perfect balance. It can't be too aggressive, or it'll kill off its host before it can spread.
Right, a dead host is a dead end for a virus.
Exactly. But it also can't be too passive. It needs to create significant enough genetic changes to make a real difference. So it's a rare event, but when it happens...
You get a giraffe. Or maybe even, dare I say it, us. You know, the lecture even suggests that human intelligence might be the result of a viral infection.
Now that is a mind-blowing thought. Human intelligence is so unique, it's like we suddenly went from grunting and pointing to writing poetry and building spaceships.
Yeah, it's almost like someone flipped a switch in our evolutionary past.
Right. And while there's no smoking gun, the viral evolution theory does offer a pretty compelling explanation. Imagine a virus, millions of years ago, that infected our primate ancestors. Maybe it altered their brains in a way that gave rise to abstract thought, language, all the things that make us human.
So instead of being descended from apes, we're descended from virus-infected apes.
Yeah.
That's a twist. But if that's true, where did that virus come from in the first place? And what does it mean for the future of human evolution?
Those are some big questions, and the lecture does touch on one more fascinating piece of evidence in the giraffe story that might shed some light on that.
Lay it on me. I'm all ears.
Okay, remember that complex blood pressure regulation system we talked about? The one that keeps giraffes from fainting. It's called the reticulum, and it's located in the giraffe's brain. Well, guess what? The okapi, the giraffe's shorter-necked relative, also has a reticulum.
Wait, seriously? Even though it doesn't need it for a long neck?
Yep. And the lecture points out that this means the reticulum had to evolve before the giraffe's neck got longer. Otherwise, the first proto-giraffes, with their long necks and no blood pressure control, would have been dropping like flies.
So they had the solution before they even had the problem. That's weird.
It is weird. It's almost like the blueprint for the long neck, and all those necessary adaptations were already there, just waiting for the right trigger to activate them. And that, the lecturer argues, is where viruses could play a key role.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see where this is going. You're saying a virus could have infected the Cyphetherium, not only giving it a longer neck, but also installing the blood pressure regulation system ahead of time. Like evolution had a plan all along.
Exactly. It challenges this whole idea of evolution as a purely random process.
So from random mutations to a pre-planned blueprint, that's a pretty radical shift in thinking.
It is, and it opens up a whole new can of worms. If evolution is following some kind of blueprint, who or what created that blueprint?
Whoa, that's a question that'll keep me up at night.
It's a big one, and the lecture goes even further, suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the whole course of evolution is predetermined.
What you mean, like, we're all just following a script, our destiny's already written out, no free will?
Hold on. The lecture just presents this as a possibility, something to think about. It's not saying it's definitely true, but it does make you wonder.
It does. All right, everyone, we've covered a lot of ground today. Viruses as evolutionary masterminds, a potential blueprint for evolution, maybe even a predetermined path. What a wild ride. Where do we go from here? Welcome back to the show. I don't know about you, but my head is still spinning from that last segment. It's like suddenly I'm seeing viruses everywhere.
I know, right? It really changes how you look at the world. But before we go full-blown existential crisis, let's bring it back to the okapi for a minute.
Right, the okapi, the giraffe shorter-necked cousin. A living reminder that not all evolutionary paths lead to a super long neck.
Exactly. And, the lecture throws out this really wild idea. What if the okapi is actually destined to evolve a long neck, just like the giraffe?
Wait, are you saying the okapi is just, like, biding its time, waiting for the right virus to come along and flip the switch? Like it's on some kind of evolutionary waiting list?
That's kind of what they're suggesting. And if that's true, it raises some even bigger questions, like, if evolution is predetermined, does free will even exist? Are we all just puppets dancing to a tune written billions of years ago?
Okay, whoa, that's getting a little too deep for me. But seriously, is there any evidence to support this predetermination thing, or is it just pure speculation?
It's definitely on the fringe, but the lecture points to some intriguing stuff. Remember that blood pressure regulation system in giraffes? The reticulum? Well, the okapi has it too, even though it doesn't need it for a short neck.
Right. It's like they're carrying around a high-tech gadget they haven't even figured out how to use yet.
And that suggests maybe the blueprint for a long neck and all those crazy adaptations that go with it could already be hidden in the okapi's genes, just waiting for the right signal to activate it.
So maybe those viruses aren't just random agents of chaos. Maybe they're part of some larger plan, some ancient blueprint for evolution that's been in the works since the beginning of life.
The lecture doesn't say there's some conscious designer or anything like that, but it does challenge the idea that evolution is purely random.
Okay, so we've got these tiny invisible viruses, maybe orchestrating massive evolutionary changes, possibly even following a blueprint. It's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. Makes you realize we still have so much to learn about how life works, how it evolves.
Well, one thing's for sure. After today's deep dive, I'll never look at a giraffe the same way again. And maybe I'll think twice before swatting that next fruit fly.
That's the beauty of exploring these ideas, right? It opens your mind to new possibilities, new ways of seeing the world.
Absolutely. To all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this wild ride into the world of viruses and evolution.
We hope it sparked your curiosity, made you question some assumptions, and maybe even inspired you to go out and learn more.
That's what we're all about. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that sense of wonder alive.
See you next time.